The member for Wendouree.
Thank you, Acting Chair. I wish to thank the Attorney-General and the Minister for Equality for the work that has gone into this bill and welcome the opportunity to speak in support of the Births, Deaths, Marriages Registration Amendment Bill 2019, as it is another step to providing a fairer and more inclusive Victoria. The amendment bill is about giving trans, gender diverse and non-binary Victorians a birth certificate which reflects who they truly are. By introducing this bill, the Andrews Labor government is fulfilling our election commitment to govern for and to ensure equality for all Victorians. And while the Liberal Nationals continue to pull their politics of ideology and divisiveness ahead of what's right, as demonstrated in this place during this debate, we're removing unfair barriers and making sure Victorians feel safe and supported in our community. The changes are important because they will allow applicants to self-nominate the sex listed in their birth registration as male, female, or any other gender diverse or non-binary descriptor of their own choice. We believe this best reflects the preferences of those who are impacted by this and seek this change. Currently, trans and gender diverse Victorians are forced to out themselves whenever a birth certificate is requested, when applying for a bank account, a passport, or even a job. This can cause embarrassment and raise privacy, safety, and discrimination concerns. This needs to change. It is a matter of respect and dignity for all Victorians. The amendment to the Birth, Deaths and Marriages of Registration Bill will remove the need for applicants to have to undergo sex affirmation surgery before being able to apply for a new birth certificate that reflects who they are. The bill amends the Act to remove the requirement for the application seeking to alter the sex record in their Victorian birth registration to have undergone sex affirmation surgery. Currently, the situation that we have that we must change is that a person wanting to alter the sex recorded in their birth registration must have undergone the surgery. But sex affirmation surgery is a serious medical procedure that involves an alteration of a person's reproductive organs. It is important to understand that in Australia, gender reassignment service, it's not covered by Medicare, and it can cost a patient from $16,000 to up to $100,000. For many, this is cost prohibitive, a financial barrier for many to access surgery. For some people who identify as a sex that is different from the recorded in their birth registration, such surgery is not an option for them because they may have a medical condition or a disability that prevents surgery from being undertaken, or because the surgery is unaffordable or not easily accessible or even available where the person lives. Further, some people who identify as a sex different from those recorded on their birth registration do not wish to undergo surgery. Currently, the surgery requirements applies regardless of other ways in which a person may live or affirm their gender identity. Instead, this law will allow an adult to apply to the Victorian Register of Births, Deaths and Marriage to alter the sex recorded on their birth registration by way of a statutory declaration that the person believes that their sex is as nominated in the application and which is accompanied by a supporting statement from an adult who has known the applicant for at least 12 months. The applicant must nominate the description of the sex to be used on their birth record, which may be male, female or any other gender diverse or non-binary descriptor nominated. This means that the people will be able to describe their sex in a way that reflects their identity. I also support this bill because it's a human rights issue. Under the Equal Opportunity Act of 2010, every person in Victoria has the right to enjoy human rights without discrimination. They are equal before the law and entitled to equal protection of the law without discrimination, and they have the right to equal and effective protection against discrimination. This includes freedom of discrimination based on gender identity. Passports allow non-binary gender, as do Medicare cards and driver's licences. Other states have already done this, and it's only birth certificates which are not keeping up. This bill is about inclusion, fairness and equality. It is time we make this change in Victoria. I am so proud to be a part of a government that is building an inclusive state, where people can be true to themselves and accepted and welcomed. Prior to entering this place, I worked as a teacher. And at my school, we adopted an open and accepting approach to trans and gender diverse students. I was so proud of my school community's response when a student sought to identify and be known as their true gender. At the start of the school year, the student commenced term 1 with a new name and a different uniform. From my perspective and observations as a member of the teaching staff, classmates and students from across the school accepted the student's new name and sex identity change. They continue to have many friends, be active in all aspects of school life, house activities and the performing arts. I'm also pleased that another young trans woman who I previously taught is being supported by their friends and family as they publicly embrace their gender identity. I admire you and I wish you well for the future. I wish to thank the many constituents who have contacted me to voice their viewpoints on this bill. I've received correspondence by supporters and opponents of this legislation and have taken time to consider their arguments, stories, concerns and opinions. I genuinely welcome hearing from members of the community on issues and encourage all constituents to engage with me about their viewpoints. To the parents who have contacted me to advocate on behalf of your children, I thank you. One such parent explained to me that she supported changes because her son is transgender and currently doing VCE, but surgical options have been postponed until after his high school is finished. In her words, she explained, he desperately wants his name to be the same on his official documents, including his VCE certificate. If legislation doesn't pass, he'll be stuck with his dead name until he has surgery sometime in the future when it's affordable. This will cause him considerable anguish and constant explanations and outings of himself for his adult life. It is truly vital for our family and my son's mental and emotional health that these reforms pass. Thank you for sharing your experience with me and I wish your son every success in his VCE and I hope this Parliament will make the changes that will support him and your family. I wish to quote from a local teacher who contacted me to urge me to support this bill on behalf of trans students. She wrote, I've seen the personal struggle of young trans people's experience and after the hideous discrimination and misunderstandings they encounter, surely the government's role is to protect the rights of the vulnerable rather than reinforce the prejudices of the ill-informed or of bigoted groups. Offering rights to trans or gays or any other minority group in no way impinges on the rights of conservative religious people. It simply allows recognition of individuals for who they are rather than judging them because of who they are not. Changing the law will make a huge difference to the daily lives and mental health and wellbeing of trans and gender diverse Victorians and no difference to anyone else's. I would like to thank Isabel Langley, lovely to meet you earlier today, who's in the chamber, for sending through your video last night. It came through while I was still here and I watched it immediately. Well done. I sound like a school teacher once again. It was a very mature presentation and your arguments were compelling. A+. I hope this bill will be successful in passing this change in legislation for you and thousands of other trans and gender diverse Victorians. I am proud to live in a state that values equality and to support this bill to remove discrimination against trans, gender diverse, non-binary and intersex Victorians by removing barriers to acknowledging a person's sex on their birth record. This is what we said we would do when we would be elected. We would govern for all Victorians, we would live our values. This is our values, to make Victoria fairer, more decent and more inclusive. I could not be prouder of this government. Thank you.